My name's Tio Faulkner, Ngaitarangi iwi, Ngaitarangi nui iwi, Ngāti kuku hapu, Ngai tūkairangi hapu. From Tauranga Mona, and I come from a family that has fought for our whenua, and especially after my father, Tio Faulkner, who used to travel this country helping people to know why they shouldn't be paying rates on Māori land. And by getting an understanding of his perspective, I went searching for the historical background of what we need to understand as to why he could make that statement. And that started me on a wonderful journey of searching historical documents and archives and understanding legal precedent and cases that have been fought in Aotearoa all the way back to the Privy Council in the 1800s. And what that helped me to understand is that Māori, tangata whenua, uri tangata, by establishing their right status at law, that we can actually achieve a lot. So what I've discovered is that we can actually benefit our whole country if we actually learn and re-establish the beauty of our culture and re-enliven, I guess, our cultural values and our cultural history. So I started to look at, well, what were the great things about our culture back pre-European history that gave our people mana, order, civility, prosperity, and an amazing prosperous economy, even of trade and agriculture. And what I've started to do is to share these ideas through wānanga and actually re-educate our people about the amazing things that our ancestors lived and thrived on in pre-European history. And if we start to re-enliven that, we realise that we shouldn't just take on everything that the European society has given us without question, because there are many things in how we used to keep healthy that we should be living now, instead of just relying on the tablets that the European or Western society would suggest. So what are those gifts, those taonga, that have been handed down from generation to generation that can make our society thrive again from a beautiful perspective? And I can tell you that is something that Europeans long for, the peace and the serenity and the connection to the environment that comes naturally in our culture. And we've just got to live that ourselves, and it will come naturally from us. So that's how I started the journey. But when I started realising and doing this research, I realised that when the Europeans came here, when the British came here, they used some very deceptive tactics to undermine our society. And because in order for one empire to succeed, it cannot allow any other empire or culture to have any relevance. So we have over 100 years of the European culture, Western culture, trying to smash everything that was Tangata Whenua. Our natural healing methods, our order, our structures of governance, our land, the very possession of our land. And what the Europeans knew is that land is everything. You cannot be a king without land. You take away the land, you take away the mana. And that's why it's so important to be here in Ihumatao, to reinforce that for all of us and know that the land is worth fighting for, just as our ancestors fought for it. We use different methods now, and we need to understand to use the law, which is being used against us. We have to understand it. The Tangata Whenua have to understand it, and to use it to recapture our land, bring it back. One of the simple things I discovered, I got the Penguin book of Captain Cook's journals, because whenever you do research, you go back to source documents. So I thought, look, I've heard a lot about this Captain Cook fellow, so I thought, best if I go and read all his journals. So I got this thick book, and it was the Penguin book of the journals of Captain Cook. I went to a particular date. It was the 12th of November 1769. Happened to be the day before my brother's birthday, just 100 years earlier. And I started to read. It was about a paragraph in this book. And it went through that Captain Cook, he landed at this particular place, and he went on the land. The weather was this and the wind was that. And then it went to the paragraph, then went ... And then it went on to the 13th of November 1769. And having an inquiring mind, I went, well, what else was there? What else was after that? And so I went searching. And what I found was 2 or 3 pages were written on the 12th of November 1769. And Captain Cook talked about his visit to a site, and he talked about how ordered it was, how strong the fortifications were, how they would be able to defend themselves very well. All of the agriculture, all the plantings and the food supply within the pa was there. And I went, why was all of that edited out of a book, which is the Captain Cook journals? And then I went to the index and I went, well, on that day, Cook's navigator, Tupaia, connected with Tangata Whenua there, communicated and got permission to come on. And that was not there. So I went to the index, and Tupaia is not even in the index of this book. So you have a whole book of hundreds of pages completely bereft of any reference to anything positive about Tangata Whenua, and no reference to the very navigator who helped Captain Cook come all the way to Tahiti, from Tahiti to here. And that's when I knew we have a problem. And that is what colonisation is, the deliberate editing out of our history. And you can't look back after that. You have to keep searching. So another one of the pieces of research that I came about that really got me fired up was some documents held at the House of Lords from 1837. And you can go look it up, Volume 3 of the Accounts and Papers. And it was a document of a letter written by James Busby back to England. And it talks about, he's actually saying how they can control the population of Māori. And I'll just read a section. To complete the means of establishing an entire control over the population, it would only be necessary to establish a school in each considerable village, with a schoolmaster paid in proportion to the number of individuals he should have under his tuition. An annual examination of these schools and a distribution of prizes of trivial value would bring the whole population under the supervision of the government, while a periodical newspaper might at the same time that it conveyed the news of the day be made the means of instructing the natives in those relative duties of the people and their rulers, which are familiar to all ranks of the population under established government, but of which New Zealand have scarcely as yet conceived an idea. So if we ever needed any more proof to really understand, there was a systematic approach to quell any sort of education by Tangata Whenua for our own that was never going to be allowed under a European system. And that's all I can say is, look, the evidence is out there, the proof is out there. We just have to, as kaitiaki of our ancestral inheritance, we need to know what that ancestral inheritance is and fight for it and understand how they have tried to fight for their values of Western society over our own cultural values. But it's worthwhile. It has been an amazing journey and a beautiful journey and an awe-inspiring spiritual journey that I encourage everyone to do. Kia ora.